welcome to episode 3 of Rigor Mortis Paranormal. Tonight we've got a pterodactyl story. A young man with mixed feelings sees a little girl in the mirror, a creepy doll or a ghost, all this from a tantrum. 3 taps, an emotional girl fills a presence. You may have guessed the topic for today is, can emotions summon a spirit? My name is David, and this is Robert.
Hello?
Okay, well, I don't know, Rob, what are your thoughts on feeling conjuring spirits?
I do believe in that. I'll give you an example, actually. This happened about maybe 20 years ago to me and my wife. One time we were having a real bad argument. It was really bad. I don't even know what we were arguing about. We started arguing, and the weird thing is, that argument went on for a while. I mean, like, we had to actually take a breather just to argue again. Yeah, it went on. I'm serious. I think that argument lasted.
It's like, yeah, let's stop and take a lunch break here.
Yeah, I for the life of me, and that's just the thing. I guess now that we're both grown adults, we don't remember what it was about. It was probably something real small, but It just turned into something big. And we were arguing for, I'm not kidding, I know it was well over 2 hours. And as we were arguing, I remember there was no one home. It was just me and her. And for some reason, the TV turned on. And not only that, it turned on full blast. This has never happened. Not with that TV. Never since, and never again after that. Mind you, this is like 20 years ago. The TVs were, I'm sure they did have them where they can, but I never set the alarm to this thing or anything like that. And it happened when it was getting heated. So to me, I thought either somebody was telling us to shut the hell up and that's enough, give it a rest. Or they were letting us know, like, hey, you know what, you're inviting me in, so I'm coming in. I didn't know if it was an evil presence or not. Guess what? As soon as that TV, I thought there was an intruder. So we both shut the hell up, went over there, and I saw the TV on. It was full blast. Wow. I mean, you could not get another volume height on that thing.
One more bar on that.
So what I did was, I unplugged the damn thing. And we both laid down and we shut the hell up, hugged each other when we were laid down, and we gave it a rest and we didn't have no problems. But it was just one of those things I just kind of freaked out about. To me, it felt like a warning. I don't know if my wife took it that way. I know she got scared. She got scared worse than me. And I didn't like seeing her like that, so we shut the hell up. We hugged each other the rest of the night, and it was all right.
Wow.
But I do believe that. I do believe that.
Wow, that is crazy. I don't know if you remember this, because actually I went running to your house that night. This is over 20 years ago. Do you remember when the water turned on?
It was the same damn house, man, that I had the problems in.
Well, so I went to another problem house of mine. But this is over 20 years ago, and the wife and I were arguing, and it was really crazy because we lived in this apartment where the sink was in our room. It was like a vanity inside of the room.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it had these 2 sinks and stuff, and, it was supposed to look fancy, but, again, this is kind of, it was dated. But it was funny because, we were done arguing and stuff, though, so that was kind of the strange part about it. We were done arguing, and it was late at night. Well, I say late, it was about 10 o'clock, maybe, and we were both just laying there. And we hadn't fallen asleep yet because we had just laid our head down to rest for maybe 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, the water turned on full blast in the sink in our room.
The vanity?
Yeah, in the vanity. The water turned on full blast in the vanity. And we both just looked at each other like, what the hell? How did this happen? And I laid there for a little while thinking there's got to be a logical explanation for this. So I finally got up and I walked to the vanity and I looked at the sink and I thought to myself, if I can turn it in full turns, it's got to be something strange. But if not, maybe a gasket just gave. So I was thinking it's got to be a gasket that gave out on the faucet. Anyhow, I turned this thing. It took about 3 or 4 full turns to get this thing to turn off.
That thing was on full blast.
Yeah, so I mean, it was like just all the way to the max. So I'm like, what the hell? I got scared. It wasn't anything major, but still, I got scared. She was panicking because she's a lot more, scaredy cat than I am. So we both just took off and we're like, the hell with that, man. And we went to your house.
Yeah.
And
I do remember that. It was the same damn house at that time. That's weird. I guess if you're that super upset, or maybe you have feelings of sadness that bring things on, maybe you see a loved one you hadn't seen in years, or just have maybe a good one like that. I hear you. But before we get into those emotion stories, we have a really good first story. It's about a pterodactyl.
All right, here goes.
Our pterodactyl story comes to us by John from San Antonio. He writes to us, well, my story is pretty crazy. One night I heard my dogs going crazy. 3 pit bulls barking a lot more than usual. So I stepped outside. There, looking up towards the sky and see something flying over my house, really big. I tripped out. I thought it was a super big owl or something, so I go inside. Then my dogs start going crazy again. So I go outside again, this time with my flashlight, and this time they're barking towards the dark corner in my backyard. So I'm trying to flash the light over, but I can't see nothing. I hear movement, something really big. I tried throwing a rock over there, but nothing. Freaked me out. Finally, after like 30 minutes, the dog stopped barking. So about a month goes by, and I'm in my backyard again. In my yard, I just look up, gazing at what I heard, a noise up in the trees. I swear I see something big, huge, like flying by. I swear the wingspan on this creature had to have been at least 12 feet long. And the strange thing is, every time it flapped its wings, you can hear a whooshing sound. It was so big, I could not believe my eyes. That was one of the craziest things that ever happened to me.
Wow, that was a great story. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, that was a great story. It brought back memories of the sightings we had here way back in the 70s.
Yeah, 76.
76, yes.
It was actually Big Bird.
Yes, that lasted like 2 weeks. There was a whole mess of sightings back in San Antonio and South Texas.
Yeah, South Texas area, the whole area.
Yeah, and it was just everywhere. I remember seeing that in the newspaper and on the news, but that wasn't the only year that we had that happen.
That happened 76, again in 86, 95, 2008, and now John's saying he saw it in 2014.
What is that?
Almost every 10 years.
Kind of like a Jeepers Creepers thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like every 10 years, here comes this pterodactyl. I don't know if you remember this, but back in 76 when that happened, I think it was CBS Channel 5 News.
Yeah, Eyewitness News.
Eyewitness News. I remember them doing the tracker, and they kept on talking about it every few days. They're like, today was spotted in Phoenix.
Like
and,
the Santa Claus tracker?
Yeah, it was a Santa Claus tracker. Exactly is what it was.
It was a NORAD one?
Yeah. The last time they spotted it, I think, was in Seattle, Washington, and then it disappeared, mysteriously.
Yeah, it's weird. You said the timeline that they have is something like, what, every 10 years?
Yeah.
What does it want? What does it keep just coming back in 10? And what does it want in San Antonio? That's what.
Yeah, no, really. Yeah,
and we have some really mean enchiladas and some good Tex-Mex food, but really, I was doing some research on this. They have a sighting that was back 2015 in Boise, Idaho, and what looks like a Petrosaurus, and it's weird. If y'all look it up, just look for a Petrosaurus flying over Boise, Idaho, and I'll show a little video of it, and it's weird because this thing is huge. That thing is big.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I think it's a Petrosaurus.
Petrosaurus, there you go. What did I say?
Petrosaurus.
A Penosaurus, no. A Petrosaurus, there you go. Well, they spotted these in Kansas, Utah, Arizona, Ohio, and now they're saying it's up in Idaho.
Wow.
That
looks crazy. That actually looks like a pterodactyl to me.
Yeah, and it was bringing up also the same thing we were talking about. It was bringing up the history of San Antonio back in the 70s when that big sighting was.
Oh, so that story went all the way back to the one in San Antonio?
Yeah, it's like what, almost every 10 years is when they show up in South Texas? Well,
in that neighborhood?
Yeah, and they're still having sightings to this day. When I was doing the research on this Petrosaurus, there was a cryptozoologist by the name of Ken Gerhardt, and he wrote a book about reptile-like birds that have a wingspan over 15 to 20 feet.
Wow.
What his theory is that they may not be as extinct as we think they are. He was saying that maybe there were some that actually made it are distant cousins to the Petrosaurus or pterodactyl, and he's saying that maybe they're just well hidden or they're just other places that we haven't looked. But where do they hide?
Yeah,
that's what I'm
kidding.
saying.
For them not to be seen that often, I mean, if they would really exist, you'd think we'd see them a lot more often.
Yeah, this is weird. Maybe it's a new species?
Yeah, definitely.
Like something.
Sounds like it.
That's a good one, John. Thanks for the story, John.
Yeah, definitely. This next story comes to us from Jacob. He sees a little girl in a mirror.
We're getting into more of our emotions, bringing on manifestations or paranormal occurrences. This is a good story. Y'all listen to this one. It's pretty good.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. I was just calling to tell you my story and hopefully get y'all's opinion on it. Anyway, it was about like 5 months back or so. It was late at night. Me and my girlfriend, we were home with my 2 nieces. We had been taking care of them, and me and her had been arguing. It was kind of early in our relationship. We were still young. We'd argue about a lot. But anyways, we'd been arguing all night pretty much, and I was kind of just getting tired of it. I just wanted to walk out, just get away from it because I don't like arguing, honestly. And I left the room because, like I said, didn't want to hear it. And I had went to go to the kitchen to pour myself something to drink, and then use the restroom because I actually had to use the restroom. I had to take a really bad shit. Anyways, I had went to the restroom. I was in the restroom. There's a mirror, and the mirror shows the door behind me and where you walk in. And I was standing there, and I walked in there, and I was about to shut the door. When I was about to shut the door, I saw a glimpse of the mirror, and I saw a little girl peeking her head in. She had a pale white face. It was kind of weird because when I had took a glimpse, you couldn't see her eyes. So I was like, what the heck? And she had stringy hair. And she stood there actually for a while, like peeking her head in. So I turned around real fast because I thought it was one of my nieces. When I had turned around, it was gone. And I was thinking to myself, like, how did something really, like, disappear that fast? Turned my head pretty fast. So I was scared. I left the restroom right away. I didn't even use it. And I went to go check on my nieces. And when I had went inside their room to check on them, they were both passed out. So I was like, what the fuck, you know? Like, so I went to go tell my girlfriend, and right away me and her stopped arguing because I was scared. I know she was scared once I told her. She was even saying, like, was it your nieces? I was like, no, they're asleep, you know? Like, I mean, unless they woke up real fast. So I went to go wake them up and ask them. I was like, hey, y'all just walk over there. And they were like, no. They were, like, still asleep. They were looking at me like I was stupid. And I was like, okay, you know, let them go back to sleep. Anyways, that night, me and her ended up patching things up. We ended up just laying down, but we were like fully awake. You know, we were trying to sleep, but we were scared because something like that we had never really experienced. And when I was younger, I always wanted to see ghosts and stuff like that. I always believed in it, but now when I saw that, I was like, oh, I was frozen. Like, I was frozen. It was crazy. Anyways, thank you so much. I really love y'all show. And that's it. Thank you.
Wow, that was creepy. You know, he was talking about his emotions, that maybe something that brought on that little girl that he saw. That's weird.
Yeah, that's creepy as hell. Could you imagine seeing a little girl in the mirror in the middle of the night?
No, that's crazy. And he mentioned that he had a mirror on the door and that he had seen the reflection of a little girl with stringy hair. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And that...
While he was doing his business?
Yeah, that's it. I was just thinking that, Jacob, let me tell you this. I've known girls who, when they opened the door on me while I was taking a shit, I had no traces that they were there. They just disappeared as fast as they can. Why? I couldn't tell you. I can only imagine. I didn't even want to be in there. But, you know, not making light of the story again, like, oh, we love to do this to you. That is weird.
That was a great story.
You know, another emotional story. He was mentioning that him and his girlfriend were arguing or having problems, whatever the deal was. Right. It's just like we talked about at the beginning of the story, the experiences that we had. So I'm thinking, yeah, I believe that can happen.
I agree. I mean, to see a little girl in the mirror, I mean, putting myself in that position, that's got to be creepy as hell.
I don't think I could have finished. I would have just lift my pants up and headed on back down the highway bed. I could sleep like that. My wife might not want me like that, but hey, I'm not going back in that restroom. Not to see that. No.
Kidding him.
Thank you, Jacob, so much for that story. Okay, we got another emotional story that was emailed into us. This one is from Renee. She had recently lost her home and her husband's hours were cut and she was a new mom. So, you know what, Dave, why don't you do these honors?
Yeah, sure, okay. So Renee writes, hey guys, my name is Renee, and my story comes to you from Texas. It was about 1.5 years ago, and we were having financial struggles. My husband had his hours cut, we recently lost our house, and I was a new mom. I was borderline depressed. We moved in with my sister. It was a fairly new house. It was a Saturday morning and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were cooking breakfast. The night before, my niece had her cousin stay over. I was aware of everything going on around me, but I was trying to stay asleep and avoid waking up. I was laying on the couch with my 6-month-old. I had my back facing everything, and I distinctly remember being tapped on my shoulder 3 times. I rolled over without hesitation, thinking I would find my niece standing there. No one was there. The living room is not that small, and I don't see how anybody could run that fast, and there's not many things you can hide behind. But just in case, I quickly got up and walked to the back door and looked out. My nieces and all 3 cousins were in the pool, so I walked to the kitchen and my sister and brother-in-law were still cooking. I know what I felt. 3 taps on my left shoulder. Maybe my negative energy made me vulnerable. I don't know. What do y'all think? Another thing about the same house. My husband and I were sitting at the table and my dad walks out from his room and stands at the table. He's really quiet for a while. He just looks a little confused. I asked him what was wrong. He answered by asking me where my nieces were. I told him they weren't home. I asked him why. He just shook his head and walked away. He later comes back and he tells me he was asleep and felt someone small jump on the bed, but no one was there. I've never felt anything malicious, but I've definitely felt like there is someone watching me. Thanks for reading, guys. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts.
Okay, then. That's a good one. I like that one.
That was a doozy.
Yeah, I'm thinking there has to be something in that house. Plus, the state of mind that she was in. She was discussing how she was a little depressed because of her financial status and losing her house. And I can imagine that's hard enough alone. And then staying with her family, just being in a new environment with a new baby, that's another thing that she had to adjust to.
Right.
Do you think that possibly had something to do with what she was feeling there?
You know, it would have been nice to hear if she heard anything, any events that happened beforehand in that house. So, you know, it could have been something from the house or Or again, it could have just been because of her state of mind, or like you said, a combination.
She said it didn't feel malicious, and the father said that he felt it climb on the bed or something.
Yeah, I felt something climbing on the bed.
That's kind of creepy. But like
scary.
That could be an innocent not knowing, like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go lay down. But like, you're by yourself. You're like, hell no, what the hell is that? But then again, maybe the taps were just to let her know, like, hey, you're safe here.
That's true.
I don't know, maybe.
Could have been somebody consoling her,
exactly,
right? Like a family member that passed on. Or...
Yeah, that would be nice to hear more from her, because maybe it could have turned malicious and been a tap like, hey, you're next.
Yeah. That would be horrible.
That was a good story. Renee, thanks a lot for that. Hopefully we can hear from you in the future. Maybe give us more insight on that house. We got another good one for you.
This next one comes to us from a gentleman by the name of Rob.
Oh,
just like you, huh?
Another good name, Rob.
There you go, good name. All right, let's hear your story, Rob.
Hey, David and Robert, what's up? This is Rob out of San Antonio, Texas. I wanted to start off saying that I think it's awesome what y'all are doing. I've always been really intrigued by all the unknown, whether it be paranormal or extraterrestrial or just unexplainable events. Anyway, I got 2 stories to tell you guys. I'm going to tell you one more on the paranormal side today. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. When I was about 9 years of age, me and my brother and my 2 sisters and my mom and dad lived with my mom's parents in their house in Dayton, Washington. My mom had 3 older brothers and a younger brother that had passed away when he was around the age of 5, so I never really met him. He went by the name of PS, which was short for Patrick Shane. Anyway, they all grew up in this house that we were staying in with my grandparents. And when we were living there, I had my bedroom and my brother and sisters had their bedrooms in the basement, along with this empty room that had all my grandma's creepy collectibles and black and white framed pictures of deceased family members, including my mom's younger brother, PS. And in these pictures, he had like long, straight, blonde hair and was always dressed in overalls, and it was back from the 60s. So anyway, my grandfather was an auctioneer, and my grandma was always going with him and bringing home random toys and dolls, and in particular creepy porcelain dolls that she collected in tall, ceiling-high glass cases around the basement and in that empty room. I always creeped out when I was in the basement. It was that creepy dark room that had nothing in it but porcelain dolls and old black and white pictures, and it creeped everybody out, including my brother and sisters. Anyways, one day my grandpa brought a large doll home from one of the auctions. It was dressed in corduroy overalls and had blonde, long, straight hair, a little boy with blue eyes. And my grandmother mentioned it reminded her of her deceased son, PS. So she left the doll on an old creepy rocking chair in that empty room in the basement to make it even more creepy. And the doll alone made me not want to go downstairs at all. Neither did my brothers and sisters after this. Anyway, one day I got in trouble, and my parents were pissed off at me and sent me to the basement to my room. It sounds messed up, but that's where my room was. They didn't lock me in the basement, but that's where I slept. And I remember I was just throwing a fit. I was throwing a tantrum, and I was crying, and I got a creepy feeling down there anyway, and it made it even worse. So, my brother stayed in the next room. He was down there at the time, but I was always still creeped out. And I didn't have an actual door on my bedroom. It actually was just a door frame, and right outside the door you could see under the stairway leading upstairs. It was just dark and creepy under there also. So I remember my mom yelling down that I couldn't come out until I stopped crying. And of course, being a stubborn little kid, I didn't want to. I was pissed off. So I started crying myself to sleep. As I started to doze off, I remember seeing outside of the doorway under the dark stairway a creepy, about 3 foot tall figure, and it actually seemed like it had some overalls on and light colored hair. It creeped me out. I don't know if it was, I thought I saw the doll, or if it might have been, my mother's younger brother's, ghost or something. I don't know what it was, but I freaked out, and I tried moving to get up out of my bed to just go upstairs, and I couldn't move. I felt paralyzed. So I tried screaming instead, and it was almost like I lost my voice. I couldn't scream. I started freaking out, and I kept seeing this figure outside the door under the stairs. And eventually my brother walked down the stairs, and he walked into my room and told me it was time to go upstairs and eat. So he turned the light on, and it all just snapped out. I snapped out of it and got up, and I was able to go upstairs. But after that, I explained it to my mother, and she allowed me to sleep upstairs on the couch, and it creeped her out, I think, after that, and she was always bugging my brothers and sisters to go down there and wash clothes or go to the pantry. She didn't want to go down there very much after that. I don't know what it was that I saw. I don't know if it was a spirit of my mom's deceased brother, PS, or maybe it was my mind playing games on me, but I've heard of things like sleep paralysis. And after hearing more about it, it seemed to fit what might have been happening to me. But either way, I know I was in a bad mood and I just didn't want to be down there. But anyways, thanks for letting me share my story, guys. That's all I really have now, but I'll get back to you with the other story. Keep doing what you guys are doing. I really like it. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, that was an awesome story, man.
yeah, I was just thinking of something that he was talking about, that he got in trouble and they sent him downstairs
To the basement?
to his basement. Yeah, we said, well, that's my room. But how he was upset and he went downstairs. I was like, yeah, I remember us getting in trouble a lot of times too. But I mean, the no eating part was just because we didn't have food.
Yeah, that wasn't a punishment. That was part of our daily life.
But the thing is, I think, yeah, he was upset, and he said he was younger, and he was a young kid upset. And I'm thinking maybe, like, since he was so upset, maybe the uncle was there to comfort him.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully it was a good thing. I mean, it looked like the doll looked like his uncle.
And here we go again with more haunted items. That's what I want to know is it something that he saw, maybe a shadow of a small person under the stairs? Was it the doll who walked over there? Or it could be either one, because he didn't want to check. You know, when you're that scared, you're not going to get up and go find out, especially if you're looking at that.
And that's a creepy doll in the room just next door, so yeah, who knows? What if it walked over there?
Exactly. And then you're that scared and you're petrified, so that brings on another thing, and actually one of our topics that we may be bringing up next week is the sleep paralysis. I mean, if you're that scared and you're that young, you don't understand what's going on. You see something weird and you're just like, hell no, I'm not getting out of this bed.
He mentioned also he wasn't too sure if he was asleep or awake either, because remember, his brother woke him up eventually, so that's true. It could be a case of sleep paralysis.
And we're going to do an episode on that next week. Something similar that I had, and this happened to me, I want to say like 3 years ago. It's weird because I don't remember none of my nightmares or dreams, none of them. But to this day, I still remember that dream very vividly. If it was a dream, because I couldn't tell, I remember being scared like I've never been that scared. I was in our dark room, because I cannot sleep with the TV on, with the light on. It's just hard. I don't know how some people can do it, some can't. I can't. Except the fan, of course, fat ass, I had something blowing on me. So I was laying there, and the next thing I know, I'm hearing a TV advisory. I hear warning, what you're about to see may contain images of graphic violence and not intended for a certain audience. Or that warning that you get when you're going to see something graphic on TV. Okay, I hear that in my dream. And then I hear like real creepy music, and like my window, I got to explain this too. My bed was level with my window, and we had curtains on those windows, but it was level. I don't know if you remember back in the 70s, they would have these guys that would come out and try to explain something terrible that happened, like Chainsaw Massacre. Right. Let's say that one. So somebody is explaining the 1979.
Right.
They're explaining.
So you gotta have a commentary going.
Yeah, it's weird because I didn't think that, but it was pitch black, but I could see in my room, and it just went straight back to that damn window, right? So they're saying something very terrifying behind this window you may not want to open and see. So what's the first thing I do?
Oh, of course, you're gonna have to open that.
So it was weird because it's one of those build-up moments too. So I open it, and I open it slow, and when I do, I didn't see nothing on the right. When I opened the left curtain, okay, going back when you were kids and you're riding a little pony, you used to take pictures on ponies. They would dress you in like a little cowboy vest and that cheesy cowboy hat.
Yeah.
What I saw was what appeared to be a little girl wearing that same outfit, except she was swollen. Like she was dead. She was swollen, like her eyes were swollen shut, and her face was black. I mean, you could see like, it was kind of like shiny black. It was gross, weird. Wow. And she was trying to smile, like she was having fun on the pony, I guess. She's looking at me, and I remember I ran out of breath, and I turned my back like away from it. But it's weird because I'm laying right there, even with the damn window, and I can't move. I cannot move for shit. And I was scared. I remember being so petrified. I was yelling and I couldn't get anything out. Just there was no air left in my body. So I was trying to move, and then I feel something pushed down behind me on the bed, and I was like, "Oh shit, man!" It got even worse. Exactly. And when she was talking about that, that's why I brought this one up, is because that reminded me of it. But it felt like somebody climbed on the bed behind me, and I remember thinking, "Okay, I'm gonna evacuate the bowels right there." I was so scared. So it was weird because I have a granddaughter by the name of Alex. She came in and she opens the door, and I remember seeing the light from the door. And she says, "Come on, Grandpa." And she grabs my hand, and I fall on the ground, and I'm crawling. And I'm so scared that I'm crying. And I didn't want to look back. And she's telling me it's okay. So I get into the kitchen, and I'm still crawling. Because our kitchen was between the living room and that bedroom. And we had several other bedrooms. Anyway, so I can hear people talking in the living room. I don't remember actually waking up. I know I got up and I was scared shitless. It seemed so goddamn real because everybody was up except our TV wasn't that loud to hear those. Because you know how like when you're dreaming, you're watching TV, you can hear shit. Like when you're about to wake up, you hear stuff and then it incorporates into your dream. But he was saying, and you know, him being a child, when he saw whatever it was under that staircase, he said he was frozen. I can kind of relate to that. I'm thinking mine probably wasn't just a terrible nightmare, but it just seemed so damn real.
Right.
You know, and it was weird, but I just thought I'd share that one because I thought it was just kind of creepy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that sounds like an interesting dream.
It was terrible.
Another case of sleep paralysis, maybe?
Maybe, I couldn't say, but like I did definitely feel that was real, where I could not move. I couldn't move for shit. I tried and I couldn't breathe. And I remember waking up and my eyes were watery, like I was crying. Actually, speaking of sleep paralysis,
shadow people and sleep paralysis, that's coming up next week in our next episode. In the meantime, if you have any stories you'd like to call in and tell us, we'd really love to hear you guys. That number would be
210-901-8666.
Remember those phone calls? We got 3
minutes. Yeah. If it goes over 3 minutes, that's fine. David's a great editor. He can get it all done, make you sound like a pro, like he says. But when you do your second call, you make sure you let us know this is part 2 to the so-and-so story. Right. And we'd really love to hear from y'all, especially the calls. We love the submitted stories, but we'd like to hear y'all actually tell the stories also. That'd be great.
That's right. And if you want to write to us, you can email us at info@rigormortisparanormal.com or visit us online at rigormortisparanormal.com and you can submit your story there. Either way, however you want to get a hold of us, we'd love to hear from you guys. We look forward to having you join us on episode 4. In the meantime, take care. Have a good night.
Y'all have a good one. Till the next time.